Shadow work is not a task to complete or a box to check. It is not a momentary confrontation with your past or a fleeting acknowledgement of your pain. It is a lifelong relationship with yourself, an unending excavation of the depths of your being. To do shadow work is to commit to seeing yourself, truly and entirely, no matter how much it hurts or how terrifying it feels. It is to sit with every piece of yourself that you have rejected, neglected, or denied and say, I am willing to understand you. And that willingness will change everything. The shadows you carry are not villains, they are guardians. They are born from the parts of you that learned to protect themselves when the world felt unsafe. They are the defense mechanisms you built as a child, the emotional armor you forged during heartbreak, the barriers you erected to shield yourself from further pain. But what once protected you has now become a prison. When you explore your shadows, you begin to see the patterns. You notice the ways you sabotage yourself, the fears that hold you back, the wounds that color every decision you make. But these patterns are not random, they are clues. They are the breadcrumbs your soul has left behind, leading you back to the root of your suffering. Every trigger, every emotional reaction, every irrational fear, they are signposts, pointing you toward the places within yourself that need your attention. But following these signposts requires courage, because the path is not easy. Shadow work is messy, uncomfortable, and often deeply painful. It is peeling back the layers of your identity and realizing that much of what you thought was you was simply a survival strategy. It is seeing the ways you've hurt others because you couldn't face your own pain. It is confronting the ways you've betrayed yourself in the name of acceptance, love, or validation. Most of all, it is learning to live without the masks you've worn for so long. The masks are heavy. They weigh you down, but they also feel safe. They protect you from judgment, rejection, and vulnerability. But the cost of wearing them is steep. You lose touch with your true self. You forget what it feels like to be raw, authentic, and whole. And so, shadow work begins with the terrifying act of taking off the mask. What lies beneath is often ugly, or at least it feels that way. The insecurities, the failures, the memories of times when you fell short or let others down, they all rise to the surface. The temptation to turn away, to put the mask back on, is overwhelming. But if you can resist, if you can hold your gaze steady and sit with the discomfort, something miraculous happens. You begin to see the humanity in your shadows. You see the child you once were, desperate for love, but too afraid to ask for it. You see the teenager who built walls around their heart because letting anyone in felt too dangerous. You see the adult who has been carrying the weight of these unhealed wounds, trying so hard to be enough for a world that demands perfection. And in that moment of recognition, something shifts. You realize that your shadows are not your enemies. They are parts of you that have been waiting for your love. This is where the real work begins. Because love is not just a feeling, it is an action. To love your shadows is to care for the parts of yourself that you've abandoned. It is to speak kindly to the voice in your head that tells you you're not good enough. It is to forgive yourself for the mistakes you've made, not because they weren't wrong, but because holding on to guilt no longer serves you. It is to create space for the parts of you that feel broken and allow them to exist without judgment. But this work doesn't happen overnight. Shadow work is not linear, it is cyclical. You will revisit the same wounds again and again, each time peeling back another layer, diving a little deeper, understanding a little more. And with each cycle, you will grow stronger. You will learn to hold your pain without being consumed by it, to face your fears without running from them, to embrace your flaws without letting them define you. The deeper you go, the more you realize how interconnected everything is. The shadows within you are not separate from the shadows in others. The wounds you carry are the same wounds that exist in the collective human experience. We all carry pain. We all carry fear. We all carry the same longing to be seen, understood, and loved. When you do your shadow work, you are not just healing yourself. You are healing your relationship with the world. Because the truth is, the way you treat others is a reflection of how you treat yourself. If you are harsh and critical with yourself, you will be harsh and critical with others. If you are forgiving and compassionate with yourself, that compassion will spill over into your interactions with the world. This is why shadow work is not just personal, it is spiritual. It is a way of aligning with the greater truth of our shared humanity. But spiritual does not mean easy. There will be days when the work feels unbearable. There will be moments when you want to give up, when the weight of your pain feels too heavy to carry. In those moments, remind yourself that healing is not about being perfect. It is about being whole. And wholeness includes everything: the light and the dark, the joy and the sorrow, the love and the pain. To embrace your shadows is to embrace your humanity. It is to recognize that you are not broken, you are complex. You are a mosaic of experiences, emotions, and stories, each one contributing to the masterpiece of your soul. And just as a mosaic is made more beautiful by its imperfections, so too are you made more beautiful by the parts of yourself you once tried to hide. But beauty is not the goal of shadow work. The goal is freedom. Freedom from the chains of your past, from the narratives that no longer serve you, from the fear that keeps you small. Freedom to be fully, unapologetically yourself, without the masks, without the armor, without the fear of being seen. And that freedom comes at a cost. It requires you to let go of the person you thought you were. It requires you to grieve the parts of yourself that you've outgrown. It requires you to step into the unknown, trusting that what lies ahead is worth the pain of leaving the past behind. Because it is worth it. The world outside of you is only a reflection of the world inside you. When you change your inner world, the outer world shifts with it. The relationships that once triggered you become opportunities for growth. The fears that once paralyzed you become invitations for courage. The wounds that once defined you become sources of wisdom and strength. This is the power of shadow work. It transforms not just your relationship with yourself, but your relationship with life itself. It teaches you that your pain is not your enemy. It is your guide. It shows you that your shadows are not something to fear. They are something to love. And it reminds you that even in your darkest moments, you are never truly alone. The light you seek has always been within you. Dive deeper.